Hello and welcome to today's webinar presenting new cannabis labeling features in the most recent version of the Genesis R&D software. My name is Alicia and I'm joined by my colleague Scott. And today we're going to share with you some of the ways that Genesis can help you streamline your recipe formulation, track the information you need, and create nutrition labels for cannabis edibles products. Before we get into that, let me give you a little background on ESHA Research. ESHA was established in 1981 and has grown from offering one of the first nutrition and labeling software solutions to a full suite of products and services, including Genesis R&D Foods, which is what we'll be showing today, Genesis R&D Supplements, the food processor for dietary analysis, and our consulting services that can provide you with labeling services, formula review, and additional assistance with your specific labeling needs. As I mentioned, we're working in Genesis R&D Foods, which was introduced in 1991, and it was developed to address formula analysis needs and compliance with the NLEA food labeling regulations. Over the years, Genesis has experienced continued development and expanded labeling capabilities to Canada, Mexico, and EU formats, as well as US restaurant labeling, and now cannabis edibles product labeling. We continue to adapt the software to changing regulations and additional options that the governing entities allow. So a word on the software is keeping current with the software and the maintenance helps you stay up to date with the evolving regulations that we encounter, as well as the functions of Genesis. Like this webinar, we broadcast on several topics throughout the year to help you learn more about the Genesis R&D features and relevant industry and regulatory topics. A few of the webinars that are coming up are in September. We have one on Health Canada. We'll be reviewing the nutrition labeling regulations for Canada. In October, we'll be talking about disclosing sulfites using Genesis. As always, we are recording the webinar today, and we'll send you a link to the recording and the slide deck, so you'll have access to the information that we covered today. We'll get that to you as soon as we can following the webinar. And also please note that if you have questions during the webinar, please send those in as soon as you can think of them. Don't wait until the end. We do have some folks standing by to help respond to those, and you can submit questions via the GoToWebinar chat or the control panel. There's a chat box there. If we don't get to your questions before the close of the webinar, we'll reach out to you directly. On that note, a question that I would like to pose to you at this time is, for what states, or areas do you need to see cannabis labeling? So if you will, go ahead and type that into the chat box. Today we'll be discussing Oregon rules, but we certainly want your feedback to help shape future developments of this module. So go ahead and share what you need. It certainly helps us, and we do appreciate your feedback. Today we'll be covering a brief view of the Oregon Cannabis Labeling Regulation, as well as some resources to help you specifically with Oregon law. We'll share with you how Genesis can help you with product formulation, whether you're labeling for Oregon or elsewhere, and we'll show you the specific labels and reports available in Genesis to meet the OLCC cannabis labeling requirements. We will also address Q&A at the end. As of January 2020, you can see here states that have passed some form of medical and or recreational marijuana laws. Indicated in green, you can see that some of the states have legalized marijuana for both recreational and medical uses. States in blue indicate only medical use has been legalized. As more states do consider conversations and legislation, we could see more states legalize cannabis-related products. For instance, Vermont and DC have developing regulations, so we're keeping an eye on those. At this time, cannabis-related topics are being discussed at the federal level, but we don't have certain labeling regulations in place from the FDA. So individual states are moving ahead under their own jurisdictions. This creates a widely varying set of regulatory possibilities and packaging that can look very different from state to state. You can see here some of the states that have legalized recreational and medical marijuana products, as well as the descriptions of the nutrition labeling requirements that they have in place. In all of these listed, you can see that ingredient and allergen information is required. Note that California, Maine, and Oregon have requirements for a specific set of nutrients that need to be declared as well. And Michigan states that if nutrition claims are made on the packaging, then the nutritional detail is also required. For some of the states, the FDA label may serve to comply with the state regulation, but Oregon has a specific set of nutrients and label formatting to be followed. We did also reach out to California Department of Public Health, and they responded that at this point, the Oregon label could serve to comply with the nutrition labeling piece of the California regulations. Of course, they did also say that all the requirements in the California Department of Public Health Section 408 would also need to be met. So that's an example of overlap of formatting that can occur from state to state, but of course you want to check with your local agencies for the full list of state requirements. The Oregon Liquor Control Commission, or the OLCC, is the agency that oversees recreational cannabis industry in Oregon, including review and approval of recreational marijuana and hemp products, packages, and labels. We might see recreational marijuana products in the form of edibles, topicals, tinctures, capsules, concentrates, extracts, or other forms. In Oregon, a cannabinoid edible is defined as a food or beverage into which cannabinoid concentrate, cannabinoid extract, or dried marijuana leaves or flowers have been incorporated. And in Oregon, the maximum THC content allowed for recreational edibles is 5 milligrams per serving and 50 milligrams per container. This can vary from state to state, but that's the Oregon requirements or maximum allowances. And at this time, Genesis includes specific label formats that comply with OLCC requirements with a focus on edibles products. So that's what we'll primarily focus on today. Components and information required on marijuana edibles in Oregon are a principal display panel, or a PDP, with the product identity, which is the consumer-friendly common name of the product, the net weight of the product in U.S. customary units and metric units, and the universal symbol, which for Oregon is a marijuana leaf on a red background, and it must be in color. Black and white does not suffice. The package must also include all information or an informational panel, either separately or as part of the PDP that lists the information required for the marijuana edibles. So here you can see an example of the PDP, and it is that panel that's typically displayed to the consumer. So what they are going to see when they're shopping. Of course, the package shape and the size will steer the amount and the appearance of the information that can be displayed on the package. As mentioned, the product identity needs to use a common name that informs the consumer of what they are purchasing. And in 2018, Oregon Packaging and Labeling Regulation was updated to clarify that products must clearly identify whether they are derived from marijuana or from hemp sources. And if they contain both marijuana and hemp sources, then they must be identified as a marijuana item. And products must clearly state if they are extracts or concentrates. There's a whole lot more to the Oregon laws, but those are just a few of the highlights that were more recent. And again, I mentioned that Oregon uses the universal symbol on edibles packaging. You can see this with the red background, the first symbol on the slide. That symbol is required on all marijuana products sold in dispensaries or OLCC retail shops. You can also see here the hemp symbol used for the industrial hemp derived products, as well as the medical grade symbol. And there's a bit more description about each. You can clearly see here that universal is not so universal once you leave the state. So different states have their own universal symbols to indicate cannabis content. And in addition to the nutrition labeling, Oregon producers of cannabis edibles must supply additional information on packaging, including processor's business or trade name, the OLCC license number, um, addresses as appropriate, the unique ID number, date the product was manufactured, lab information, activation time, and milligrams of THC and CBD per serving and per container. So again, following those maximum limitations, products may be formulated with those in mind. In addition, consumer safety warnings, disclaimers, and specific storage information must be included on packaging. Regulation also includes other requirements and restrictions, such as child-proof containers and to avoid packaging that would be attractive to minors. So again, we'll provide you with some resources that provide more information and details about those regulations. To focus more on the nutrition facts panel required for cannabis edibles in Oregon, these specific nutrients must be listed even if the content for any of these is 0. So we need to see calories, fat, cholesterol, sodium, carbohydrates, sugar, and protein. And the label will also include the serving size, the servings per container, the ingredient list, and the allergen information. And those are all contained within the nutrition facts panel. So that image that is formatted in Genesis. Depending on the package shape or size, you can choose from 3 nutrition facts label formats. You start with the standard vertical label first, and if the package size cannot accommodate the standard label, then you can see if the tabular label will fit, or if not, then the linear label. Oregon wants to see the largest or most clearly and common formatted label style first. And in some cases, containers may qualify as small or tiny. Small containers are defined as packages too small to fit all of the required information, and tiny containers are defined as packages that have a surface area available for applying a label that is less than 2 inches square. For packages of that size, the nutrition facts label must go on the outer package or even on a hang tag that's attached to the small or the tiny container. The ingredient list for cannabis edibles is listed within the nutrition facts panel. That's different from the FDA food label that most of us are so familiar with. And in Genesis, you have the tools to help you create and format this list. Ingredients are declared in descending order by weight using common ingredient names. In the ingredient list, you want to correctly identify the type of marijuana item or hemp ingredient, such as concentrate, that the product contains. And the allergen statement is also included within the nutrition facts panel. Genesis includes the tools to help you work with allergens as well. Oregon law follows the declaration of the major allergens identified by the FDA, which are milk, egg, fish, crustacean shellfish, tree nuts, wheat, peanuts, and soybean. With fish, crustacean shellfish, and nuts, you must declare the specific name in the product, such as almonds or salmon or crab, etc. And I do want to note here that in Genesis, as a precaution, initially all ingredients will indicate all allergens. So whether you're using an item already populated in the software or adding your own ingredient, you will see all allergens marked. And it's your responsibility to review all of the ingredients that you use in your recipes and edit them appropriately with the correct allergens. We do this intentionally, and we want you to perform the proper reviews that you need to comply with the labeling. As you edit the ingredient records in Genesis, those will pull forward to your recipes and in turn onto the labels. For cannabis product labeling, OLCC does not require that you submit validation of your nutrition analysis, but if requested, you do need to make supporting documentation available. Genesis includes record-keeping tools to help you with this. And again, Genesis includes a database, a nutritional or ingredient database, so you can use electronic databases or lab analysis or a combination of those to come up with their values that you report on labels. Before I turn it over to Scott, I just wanted to highlight how powerful a tool Genesis is from formulation to label creation. Genesis has always been designed to help you with your product formulations with a flexible yet solid interface to encourage an efficient workflow. You can create as many new recipes and versions of those recipes as needed. You can review your work and the nutrition analysis with a variety of reports and displays. For instance, we always refer you to the spreadsheet report and encourage you to use that as part of your review process to track required information for the nutritionals. Genesis includes predetermined sets of nutrients to help you track the fields that you need, including fields for THC and CBD. So there's a set, we call them nutrients to view, and there is one that's set for Oregon for the OLCC labeling. It also includes THC and CBD to help you track those. Genesis helps you properly format the ingredient list and the allergen statement, like I mentioned. And you have a variety of label formats that can be used based on your products and packaging sizes. Genesis also includes the Cannabis report for Oregon that assembles all of the necessary information, symbols, and statements into one document, and that can be submitted for the necessary approvals. In addition, Genesis includes tools to help you categorize and organize your files and to help you capture your supporting documentation. So again, whether you are labeling for Oregon products or if you're in other regions, Genesis serves as an important tool for the formulation and documentation process to help you with compliance. Genesis includes a database of about 90,000 items. That's what I was mentioning, the electronic ingredient database. You can also add as many new ingredients as you need. So you just want to gather the spec sheets from your suppliers for the ingredients that you use, and you can enter those right into Genesis. You can easily work through various versions of your recipes in test phases or onto final phases, or you can update your formulations to accommodate supplier changes or ingredient availability. So part of that built-in flexibility with Genesis to help you provide the proper information that you need. You can work with recipes and standard unit measures, or you might be in the habit of entering batches by percents of ingredients. So again, flexibility there in working with the recipes. And for labeling, you set the serving size and indicate consumer-friendly portion information. And Genesis also includes fine-tuning features like moisture adjustment and nutrient override to reflect the content of the finished product. So at this time, let me turn it over to Scott, and he will show you how to find and how to work with these features in Genesis.
Hi all, thank you for joining us. Alicia, that was a great introduction to the cannabis side of our Genesis application. I appreciate you all being here. Be glad to show you how this can be done quickly and easily within our Genesis application. Let me show my screen and we will get started here. So what you are seeing behind me is the application itself in a Genesis format. As Alicia mentioned, I'll start with that there is a large ingredient database that you can select from. Basically, you can open up and search for any type of ingredient by name. Depending upon what you're looking for, it should be, or at least a variation of it, available inside of the application. For my searching here, I've narrowed this down to what we want to look at, and I've done this by a group search. And you can specifically search by particular tags or groups within the database. I'm just looking for items that are related to my CBD cannabis concentrate that I want to use in a particular formula. So when I did that search, it pulled up my one item that I had created. I can open up this particular item, see my quantities and measures. I can go through the nutritional values, which I would have pulled up from my particular spec sheet that is incorporated into an application, and it would give you all the information there. Ingredient statements, which Alicia mentioned, and allergen statements are a very important part of the application to make sure that you're in compliance. So in this case, under my allergens, the only allergen I have is I'm listing this item as a GMO certified item. In my ingredient statement, I'm just calling it cannabis concentrate, so there's no additional additional information that needs to be displayed there. And then, as Alicia mentioned, a great source is to have attachments available to your application. So you can search these from your computer, you can browse and drop them into your application. And in this case, I've just opened up and put in my spec sheet for my cannabis concentrate that is available for us to look at from an auditing perspective. Once this item is added or saved inside of the database, it can be added with any other additional recipe, menu plan, etc. that you might be utilizing. So in this case, I'm going to open up a recipe. As you see, I have quite a large list of 64 recipes within my database, but I am going to advance search this, and I just want to get down to my ones that are related to my cannabis side of our application here. So I'm going to open up this cannabis infused topical gummy, and within here, I've created a recipe. I have my cannabis concentrate listed within here, but I also have my other ingredients that would be used to make up my particular gummy in this case. Within Genesis, it gives you can have the flexibility to adjust the serving size, the amounts per serving, the total weight of the formula, and you can tag your item into particular groups or folders within our application. In this particular item, I have it tagged as kosher, organic, sweeteners, THC, finished, QC, which is based on Oregon QC and CBD and cannabis. So at a quick glance, I can open up our folder structure, see by the check mark where I have items listed at, expand down to see where those tags are listed so I can easily find items moving forward. Within this, I also have the ability to obviously track nutritional information, but I also want to track my CBD and THC values. So as you see here, the only item that is contributing to CBD and THC is my cannabis concentrate, which is showing at a 1-to-1 ratio within there. From an Oregon standpoint, I'm going to open up our Oregon cannabis label and illustrate that this is the compliant Oregon label based on the OLCC regulations, which are very strict. So if you are formulating for other state regulations, it's very important for you to contact those state regulators and get the necessary information or review the necessary information that must be displayed on the label. In the Oregon cannabis side, we have the option to list the mandatory nutrients. I have my ingredient statement listed within the label, and I would have my allergen contained statement, but in this case, there is no specific allergens related to this other than being GMO, which is not necessarily a generic allergen. You can add an image of your product. You can add your logo and letterhead to this, and you can also rotate between the different symbols if it's recreational, medicinal, or if it's actually hemp grade or hemp edible side of that. So as all I did is I opened up our edit label. I went in, I have our Oregon Cannabis Nutrition Facts, my Oregon Standard, and then by simply switching between the different symbols would allow you to generate the different options for that. So if I go with a hemp edible and say okay, you'll see that my logo changes within the recipe. Additionally, for the other state regulators, there might be, again, this is the Oregon cannabis label, but you could also use a particular other standard label in some of the states like Colorado that allow a different standpoint that could be an optional label. So to illustrate that, I'm just going to open up another formula instead of rotating it from here. And I'm going to go back to my advanced search again and just narrow it down to the 2 items I want. I'm opening up our recipe for Magic Brownie, which again includes the same cannabis concentrate, just at a slightly different value. But within here, I can also view our displayed label. I have a standard nutrition facts label. I have my ingredient statement, my allergen statement, and my symbol for my state compliance that I want to add, which I can add for any of the states that require that. And I also have a product image so I can easily identify the item if I wanted to include that. So from how we handle additional information within the recipes is allergen statements, as Alicia somewhat mentioned, are all turned on. So we can easily adjust our allergen identification from the recipe level at the top of the screen under the allergen statement area, or we can look at specifically the bottom area and see which items in our formula contain specific allergens. You can see my cannabis concentrate is GMO. I also have gluten in my flour, and I have eggs in my flour, my unsalted butter, and my unsweetened cocoa powder, as well as egg, for example. So it gives you a great flexibility to see where those allergen information is coming from. So on to other standpoints that can be done with the product. I somewhat mentioned initially that you can add an unlimited number of other ingredients to that. Very easy to add recipes and ingredients to the formula. Simply go to File, New, click on Ingredient. It'll pull you to the same screen, which are very similar between an ingredient and recipe. You would go down, first off, add your name and weight within a particular item, and then you'll be able to add your nutritional information and any other documentation that you may have. So it takes you to the nutrition area, which you can add that information very easily. As you can see, I can go through, and one thing I pointed out is allergen information is always turned on. So you want to validate your spec sheet and update any particular allergens that you have on that, which will carry over to any formulas you're looking at moving forward, as well as I haven't saved this particular item, but as soon as it's saved, I would be able to drag and drop or browse my attachments and add my spec sheets to that. I do want to say that the OLCC, especially in Oregon's case, may require a nutritional analysis. It's not mandatory, but they may require it, and it's always good to have your attachments listed within your ingredients or formulas so you have that at a quick and ready standpoint if needed. Our particular label, kind of back to that, does comply with the Oregon Cannabis labeling regulation that I was showing here under our cannabis infused label. But again, this is specific to Oregon, and it can comply, as Alicia mentioned, to California, but other state regulations have their own regulatory footprint, and you need to make sure that you contact those state agencies and review those regulations before determining if and what nutrition label should be used and what nutrients should be used within that label. A few of the other reports that are available, especially for Oregon specifically, that will need to be added to your particular label output is the Oregon Cannabis Report. And the Oregon Cannabis Report gives you the information that needs to be displayed on the product, such as product identity, the UID number, the business name, address, as well as the lab that was used, the date and time. But other information is filled in for you, such as the package weight, and also the amount of THC, in this case, THC and CBD, that is included in your particular product, and any activation time that you want to have. Notice we do have the nutritional information listed. We have our ingredient statement, our allergen statement, and then the packaging content statement that needs to be there depending upon the symbol that you're using and the product you're utilizing with. All of the reports and labels can be printed very easily as a PDF, as a graphic image, and then some other options such as text or CSV exports can be done on that as well. So within that, I've covered just the basics of how a particular nutrition label can be generated within Genesis, and also how you can comply with, in this case, Oregon regulations, but also other regulations. At this point, I'm going to turn this back over to Alicia, and then she's going to finish up the webinar session for you. And I appreciate your time and looking at our solution today. Have a wonderful day. Thank you again, Alicia.
Thank you, Scott. I'm going to just switch it back there. So we tried to condense a lot of information into a short period of time. There's so much more that Genesis can do, and likely much more that you might want to learn about how to use Genesis. So throughout the year, we do offer many opportunities for you to obtain in-depth training on the features of Genesis, basic uses, best practices. In fact, next week we have a web-based training available next week, August 25th through the 27th. There may be one spot available. So if you are interested in attending, get a hold of our training team. Most of these trainings that we offer do follow a common format, and they tend to be the 2-day professional level training. So you can attend that to cover the basic features and the fundamentals of Genesis, as well as a 3rd-day option that covers advanced training. So that gets into more involved scenarios and adjustments and considerations that you may need to consider. Or if you already have a firm grasp on the basic Genesis features, you can choose to attend the advanced day training only as a 1-day event. At this time, all of our training sessions are web-based events. And if you have any questions about, custom training or for your organization as a group, you have the training team's contact information there. Just shoot them a message at training@esha.com if you do have any questions about specific training options, or again, if you have any questions about attending our general sessions. And you can see the full 2020 schedule on the ESHA website. There are a variety of ways to reach us, as you can see here. You'll find a host of helpful information on the ESHA website, www.esha.com. And we also have resources available through the e-learning center. This link is listed here, but within Genesis itself, there is a button that will take you directly to the e-learning center. So that's a handy resource to have. And again, I told you we will send you some more resources about today's topics, but you can also subscribe to the ESHA e-newsletter and join us in the ESHA LinkedIn community to stay informed about things ESHA and industry related.